I have been screaming for so long about the TikTok ban that I am out of screams. This is me actually angry. 352 members of the United States House of Representatives voted to ban TikTok today. That's 81%. I want you to think about the last time you heard 81% of our Congress agreeing on anything. Think about anything for the last 4 years. 81%. Shit, to pick the Speaker of the House, it took 18 votes, and he barely got through. Remember that? Remember how many times this year alone, we've had to have votes for the Speaker of the House? But TikTok ban, they're right there. They are voting to ban the complaint box rather than listen to a single complaint on this app. They see us talking to each other. They see us seeing the humanity in each other's eyes. I don't care if you got a red hat or a septum piercing. I hear your complaints and I see the world you're standing in. I'm not reading your tweet out of context. I'm listening to your voice. I've learned so much from this app over the last 2 years, and the biggest thing was to stop judging my fellow Americans like they are on some other team. We are all just countrymen walking around together. We're all just people trying to get to the end of the day. We're all trying to make enough money so we can raise our kids, kiss them on the forehead, and hope that when we send them to school, they come home tomorrow.
That is Pearl Mania 500 on TikTok, talking about the congressional vote to ban TikTok a couple of weeks ago. Last week, President Joe Biden signed a bill that would lead to a nationwide TikTok ban. Joining us right now, Dr. Caretha Mitchell, and the tech master himself, founder of Spoutable, Mr. Chris Boozy, is back on the Karen Hunter Show. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me back. Hopefully you can hear me well.
Yes, you sound great. This video was very passionate. This TikTok video, I completely got him. He's right. 80% of Congress agreeing on anything when 80% of Congress is over the age of 60. They don't even use TikTok. It's kind of wild. So I get it for people who are using it. It is an amazing app. We were talking during the break about how I use it for breadcrumbs. You know, it's where I find some interesting information that I then go and do my own research. But you see it differently, Chris Boozy. What is this TikTok ban really about, and how should we be looking at it?
Yeah, so I understand the passion behind that, and I understand why some folks are like, "Oh, come on, there's other things you should be concerned about." But what they're not understanding is these members of Congress and the Senate and the President of the United States, they're getting security briefings. And there have been legitimate concerns over this app, just not here in the United States, but in other countries as well. So two of the biggest concerns is one, that it could be used to spy on individuals, not your average user, but folks who may be able to be compromised in certain ways. Or the app could give you access to certain networks, and that's why it was banned for use on like federal devices, government devices. The other concern is that it could be weaponized, and meaning if we ever got into a conflict with China, that our devices could be used to flood a network, prevent people from calling, sending out false messages and things of that nature, that each of our devices can actually be turned into a weapon. So that's the two major concerns with the app.
Regarding China, we were talking yesterday with Bakari Sellers, and he was like, it is almost, it feels, he didn't say this, but I'm adding to it, like Chicken Little. We have cried wolf. I'm mixing all of these different metaphors, I guess. We've cried wolf. The sky is falling. It hasn't fallen, but it has. But we are in the clouds now. The sky is falling. We don't see it. And I feel like, for this generation, they're not seeing the danger of China when 90% of the stuff here is made in China. It's like, how tell us how scary it is. How scary is the threat of a Chinese takeover of our devices?
Yeah, and that's also a good question. and also a good statement, because when we were growing up, it was the threat of Russia and the nuclear apocalypse, and us having to take cover under our desks, which never made much sense. So now China's considered the new threat. But in regards to your question, I mean, I'm not receiving those security briefings, so I don't know how much of a legitimate concern or I should say threat it is. And I do see both sides of this issue and understand why, there are folks who are making a decent living off of TikTok. But then the question becomes, do we really want to take that chance? Let's just say, hypothetically, that China and United States, for whatever reason, do end up in a conflict. You know, would we want this app to weaponize our phones and put us at risk? But the chances, like you pointed out, the majority of our products are made in China. We have these, these trade agreements and everything with China. So the question becomes, would it really happen? I sincerely don't know. That's a bit off, above my pay grade, but I do understand why Congress did it.
So you're saying it's above your pay grade, but I just want to push a little bit more, if I may.
Sure.
Because part of what I find so fascinating about this is that, part of your answer was about how Congress understands that there's a threat in terms of people who can be compromised. And when you use that phrase, the first person who comes to mind to me is Donald Trump. And what has the Congress and Senate done to protect us from him? That's one part of what I'm thinking. But the other thing I'm thinking is, to what extent, given that Facebook executives, Meta executives, are not necessarily operating from a standpoint of the common good for the nation, are we more safe with a Meta and a Facebook not having any reins on them and TikTok having reins? And then the third part I want to put into this is that limiting how much land can be bought up in the United States by foreign governments doesn't seem to be on our so-called leaders' radar. So I just wonder if you'll say more about why we should feel more secure that they have some agreement about moving toward TikTok, but they don't seem to have some agreement moving toward Meta, Facebook, and Trump.
Well, okay, so in regards to Meta, no, you're not you're not safer with Meta. And the short of it is, these tech companies here in the United States, they have some effective lobbyists, and that's the reason why we cannot, get, in regards to laws and data privacy and all that stuff. Whereas you see in Europe, they're much further ahead than we are in that regard, and that's because our tech firms here do a heck of a good job in lobbying, Congress. Now, in regards to, like, as you pointed out, these foreign nations, and let's be honest, some of them are hostile, buying up land. I don't, like I said, I don't have the answer to that, which is why Congress is only focused on TikTok. But what I can say regarding TikTok and the urgency is because I've heard the rumors behind the scenes where they've had these security briefings, and there is significant concern regarding that app. But just lastly, and I wasn't asked this question, but I do think they're going to end up selling it. I do think ByteDance will sell the app to a U.S. firm.
And isn't it what it looks like they wanted this to happen? You're listening to the Karen Hunter Show, 866-801-8255. Dr. Caretha Mitchell is here, professor and author. Chris Boozy, tech genius, I'll say that, founder of Spoutable, because if we're going to throw that term around with Elon Musk, I'm going to throw you in there, Chris Boozy, as well. As we're thinking about this, they want him to sell. They want this company to sell to an American company. And I feel like there's a little bit of bullying going on. as we look at a real bully, Elon Musk, controlling Twitter. Like, what's the difference?
Right. And that's an argument that can be made. I mean, we don't know what Elon would do, especially with his association with Russia and the weirdness that's going on there. You know, I do think it's a bit short-sighted in terms of, I do think that you guys have seen me spouted and tweeted this out. I do think our government needs to focus on tech firms in general. I do think that our, tech firms are responsible for a lot of what we're seeing, and they're not doing much of anything to stop that. One of your callers said that their daughter is getting most of their news from TikTok, and this is the trend that we're seeing. I can talk about this for hours. In my opinion, that is dangerous. It is dangerous when you have, folks getting this news, from individuals where you don't really know that this individual could be paid by a hostile foreign government to say this.
Wait, hold on, Chris. Before
Mhm.
TikTok, the 2016 elections wrought with bots, which you know a
Yep.
lot about, right?
Yep.
That there was no TikTok then. Reddit almost crashed our economy with the damn GameStop and all. Like these message boards are very popular. Most people are not getting their news from actual media outlets because there are really very few media outlets left that have integrity. So people are getting their information from a lot of places. TikTok
Mhm.
being one of them, but at least it feels like a democratization because if you have a TikTok page, nobody's stopping you from putting out the stuff you're putting out. And if I'm on Twitter, I got to navigate Nazis and racists and all of the mis and disinformation campaigns, and YouTube too, for that matter. It's stunning the amount of misinformation that's being allowed to propagate on these platforms. So why single out TikTok?
Yeah, and I just think it's really because of the close connection to the government of China.
I mean, but to Dr. Mitchell's point, they own a lot of our land. Period. They own some of our meat plants. Hello, that feels dangerous to me. And all of the stuff, including Trump's hats and shirts, are made in China. Yep. Clearly, we don't have a problem with China. Your crib, everything is made in China. We don't have a problem with China. China already, if they want to take over, they don't have to go far.
Yeah, I think it's more about, let's do a hypothetical really quickly. Let's just say we're sitting here right now, we're having this discussion, and China decides, you know what, we're going to do a first strike. We're going to invade America. I'm just using this hypothetical, and they're able to shut down networks because of this app. I just want to be clear. I think that these types of the focus that the U.S. government is putting on TikTok needs to be put on other companies as well, not just TikTok. As you pointed out, Twitter. I do think Elon is dangerous, and I've said this. I said this before launching Spotify. I said this before he actually took control of Twitter. I do think him owning that platform is dangerous because it's one of the top communication platforms in the world, and still is, even with people fleeing. You just pointed out, and Ackery pointed out with YouTube, there's a lot of disinformation, not even misinformation, disinformation that is on YouTube that does not get taken off. So we could discuss this for hours. So I'm just want you to know I'm in agreement with you that it shouldn't just be TikTok. I'm just saying I understand why they're going after TikTok.